Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back another video from O'Hara, and today we are checking out what would happen if Luffy was executed by the Marines. Let's find out.
The execution of the Pirate King Goldie Roger and the execution of his son Portgas D8.
I hate that he keeps doing this donut thing where it's like, oh.
One happens right at the beginning of the story, sparking the Great Pirate Era, the other right in the middle, plunging the world into an era of chaos and war. So wouldn't it make sense if there was one final execution that would ring in an era of freedom and peace for the entire world near the end of One Piece as well? And at this point in the story, there's really only one person that the government is as desperate to execute as the first Pirate King. Which leaves us with a super intriguing question. What would happen if Monkey D. Luffy was about to be executed by the Marines? Who would come to his rescue, and what would this second version of Marineford look like?
Damn.
Okay, imagine this. It is sometime after Luffy has just defeated Kaido. He has officially been labeled a Yonko and has awakened his legendary Devil Fruit.
Cool. All this I'm up to date with, yes.
So you might be wondering, how would the world government ever capture him in the first place? Well, there are a few options of how this could happen. He could be betrayed by one of his allies, or even be blackmailed if one of his friends had been kidnapped. But for the sake of this video, let's just assume that someone has drugged his pile of meat, which knocks Luffy out cold, and he's then carried away during the night and onto a government ship.
How dare you do that to his food, you animals, you monsters!
Next, they slap on their strongest sea prison stone that they have, submerge Luffy to the neck in a tank of water, tie him down with chains, and keep him guarded by an admiral and a seraphim. Certainly, this should be enough to keep any Devil Fruit user contained.
I was gonna say that's a lot. That is a lot. I think they're okay there, yeah.
And now that Luffy's captured, we have to ask, why would the government want to execute Luffy in the first place? Well, to start, he has already publicly declared war on the world government.
Yeah, so it's like, you can't do that.
Assaulted a world noble, he is the son of Dragon, the most wanted man in the world, and he is a Yonko with a 3 billion berry bounty. On top of all that, executing Luffy would be a symbol to the world that the government still owns the seas, just like they did with Roger and Ace's execution. And if all that isn't enough still, they would definitely want to eliminate the awakened Nika fruit user because of his ties to Joy Boy and the Void Century. So really, to sum it up, Luffy is the single biggest current threat to the world government.
But then wouldn't there be some confusion? At least they know where it is, like, because with Devil Fruits, if they were to kill Luffy, then that Devil Fruit would exist again somewhere else for someone to get, surely. With Roger, he wasn't a Devil Fruit user, so there was no kind of fear of that happening, and obviously we saw with Ace that his Devil Fruit appeared and that whole thing in Dressrosa happened, but
and their control of the entire world. Okay, and so now with Luffy on a...
Because I feel like the most secure way, I think the most secure way the government would do it is just keeping him captive and not killing him. Because you don't know where that's going, and that's something that they want.
A ship heading to New Marineford, where they plan to carry out this execution, the world government announces to the world that Luffy will be put to death in a few days' time. Now, you might be wondering why the world government would choose a public execution again after they almost lost the war at Marineford. Well, it's really quite simple. You see, a public execution is about more than just killing someone. It is a symbol of power and control. And so by executing Luffy with the whole world watching, the world government is sending a strong message to all pirates that no matter how strong you are, the world government cannot be defeated. As for why they chose New Marineford as the location here, you will see exactly why they chose this spot in particular later on in the video. But first, what about the other Straw Hats? Well, while they're certainly strong at this point, they aren't powerful enough to take on the entirety of the Marine forces and rescue Luffy all by themselves.
So all the Alliance, everyone, worst generation.
Instead, they immediately try to contact as many of their friends as possible and tell them that Luffy needs their help. And by friends, I mean all of their friends.
Everyone, yeah.
Ooh, that is a pretty impressive group, to say the least. Are the Marines seriously even going to stand a chance against this? Well, you see, the Marines have many impressive fighters themselves, plus the new Seraphim.
Oh god, the Seraphims, yeah.
Who are advanced clones of the former warlords that were introduced right after Wano.
Yeah, so I've experienced the Seraphim. Like, I'm trying to remember what chapter exactly I am up to, because I've seen the Vegapunk, I've seen the different bodies of Vegapunk, I've seen CP9 invade the island that they're on, and then I've seen Kuma fly in. That's the last thing I kind of remember.
And while most characters can be clearly divided in either allies or enemies, there are many out there that have uncertain loyalties as well. For example, what would Garp do if Luffy was about to be executed? I mean, we already saw that he could barely contain himself
when it came to Ace.
when Ace was killed, so would he really stand by and let his last remaining grandson die? Or how about Kobe, Smoker, or even Fujitora? How will they behave on the battlefield? Oh, and speaking of said battlefields, here is what we know about New Marineford. This base became the new headquarters.
It became the new headquarters for McDonald's by the look of it.
After Old Marineford was destroyed during the war. It has this massive, many-tiered fortress surrounded by rocky lands. There are also these
he's doing it.
huge McDonald's-shaped arches and a bridge that possibly leads to the Red Line.
Sweet.
Luffy's execution platform is right here, guarded by Akainu, Garp, and Sengoku. And most of the marine forces are gonna be spread
The editing on this is absolutely phenomenal. I'm loving it.
out around the island, including the Seraphim and Vice Admirals, while the Admirals themselves wait right here above the main gate. And at the top of the structure, Kong makes his first real appearance to oversee the entire battle. And so, let's get to that battle. It's a few days after Luffy was captured, and with the world watching,
This editing's phenomenal.
the Thousand Sunny approaches New Marineford. The Straw Hats and Sabo, who they picked up along the way, are lined up at the front of the ship, determined to save
I love it. Shades and powering up. Let's
Luffy.
go.
But they're of course immediately fired upon by every single cannon in the fortress, and Zoro and Sanji leap up and protect the ship, and in return Frankie fires their cannon right at the admirals. However, just like at Marineford, they easily block that blast. And before the Sunny can even land, Green Bull sends out a ton of vines to trap the ship. And even though they're not weak to fire, Sabo is still strong enough to use his flame powers to burn the vines, and those two begin to battle. As a result, the Straw Hats can now emerge from the ship and are immediately met by S-Hawk and S-Flamingo. Zoro and Sanji take on those Seraphim, while the other Straw Hats begin to fight the Vice Admirals and Seraphim as they make their way towards Luffy. But of course, remember that they're not gonna fight alone here. Prior to the
When's everyone coming out?
the Straw Hats and the Grand Fleet gather to make a coordinated plan of attack. And now that the Thousand Sunny has landed, the Allied captains join the battle as well, spreading out to take on the other main forces of the Marines. The battle is now fully on. However, the Marines seem to have the upper hand right now. Cannons rain down on the Grand Fleet, the Seraphim blast allies with lasers, and all that
Well, that was one of the giants there, wasn't it?
Luffy can do is shout encouragements and curse the Marines. And with the allies struggling to make progress, the Marines now spring their very first trap. Akainu literally erupts into these massive streams of magma, and the magma then lands in these three lines around the island, basically separating fighters from each other. And here's of course where I have to add that even though we don't know how each of these fights would go exactly, we can reasonably guess how close characters are roughly in strength. So
Okay, cool. I like that as well. I love how he's doing this narratively as well. It's like, so then it's gonna be they're all separated and it adds more tension to it, and then we don't know who's gonna be. Mate, this is cool.
while it's entirely possible that the allies would just be destroyed here, we will assume that they are strong enough to survive. For now. And so now with the fighters trapped between the magma and the superheated air above it, the admirals leap down into each of the three sectors and begin to lay waste to the allies. Cool. Akainu sees that Green Bull's plans are actually no match for Sabo, and he swaps places with the Forest Logia user. Instead, Green Bull enters the sector where Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp are fighting S-Hawk and S-Flamingo. Right. And while Zoro and Sanji are right now occupied with the Seraphim, Usopp is left to run for his life from the Admiral. It's pretty much like he's reliving his worst nightmare. Yeah. On the other side of the island, Fujitora seems to be more concerned with saving lives than he is with attacking Nami, Frankie, and Chopper. Although these three do now in exchange have to contend with S-Shark and S-Croc. No easy feat, although Frankie has already fought against S-Shark's Swim Fruit during his battle of chats with Senor Pink. This leaves Kizaru free to zip around and unleash light bombs all around the battlefield. So yeah, things aren't looking
this would be absolutely insane.
That great for the Straw Hats, but thankfully there are more allies on the way, of course. Suddenly, a massive blast breath shoots out of the clouds, destroying all of the cannons on one side of the fortress. It seems like the Pink Dragon Momo and Kaido's son/daughter were a little bit late to the battle after picking up Marco the Phoenix. Cool. And while these three are powerhouses by themselves, it seems that the Samurai of Wano have stayed home to protect their islands. Regardless, Momo continues continues to blast the fortress until Kizaru comes to confront them. And while Momo is a large target for the Light Logia user, Yamato and Marco do enough to keep the admirals at bay, while Momo destroys all of the cannons.
Right.
And while all of this is going on, Kong jumps down next to Luffy, who is cursing at his grandfather to finally let him go. Because he knows that the way things are going, his crew and his fleet will all not survive. Because while Zoro and Sanji can fight on par with the Seraphim, the other Straw Hats simply can't hold out forever. Robin and Brook continue to fight the shadow powers of S. Gecko, while Jinbei combines his Fishman Karate and the nearby water to fight against S. Snake. While on the other side of the island, Nami, Frankie, and Chopper have to fight gravity and the superhuman strength of S. Croc and S. Shark. In the meantime, the Grand Fleet is fighting with the Vice Admirals, Hina, Smoka, Bastille, Doberman, and Lance, and they can't do much else to help anyone else. They're busy on their own. And in fact, things are about to get much worse. Akainu momentarily overwhelms Sabo with his superior magma powers, and Luffy's brother is thrown near the sea. Just like at Marineford, Jinbei steps up to stop Akainu, but he is no match for the Admiral. With Jinbei distracted, as Snake is free to hunt Robin. The Seraphim brushes aside Robin's sprouted limbs and grabs the archaeologist by the throat, choking the life out of her. Brook tries to save her, but he is stopped by S. Gecko. Robin even tries to enter her demon form, but S. Snake is just too strong for her. However, suddenly, one Marine can just no longer just stand by and watch. Flying in with a flash of pink hair, Kobe punches S. Snake, sending her crashing to the rocks. And luckily, our favorite archaeologist is free. Meanwhile, Kobe is literally shaking, unsure of
he's not gonna know what he wants to do here. Oh my god.
What to do next. Furious, Akainu comes for Kobe, and the pink-haired Marine this time refuses to cower as he did at Marineford.
Hell yeah, he's gonna fight back this time. Oh, this is so cool.
However, as Akainu reaches back his fiery fist, he is blasted by a huge gust of winds. Everyone on this side of the island stops, stunned, as they see Monkey D. Dragon and the rest of the revolutionary army standing on top of the bridge. And while we don't know exactly yet what Dragon's real powers are, every time we've seen him in the story so far, there is strange winds and weather. So for now, let's just assume that he has some sort of crazy wind powers, either from a devil fruit or an ancient weapon. Or maybe just the most overpowered wind dial in history. Now, as Dragon looks down on the battlefield, he sends another blast of wind that almost topples Akainu. This gives Sabo enough time to get some healing from the Tontada Princess Mon Cherie, so he can get back up and resume his fight with the Fleet Admiral. Meanwhile, Dragon stares towards his son Luffy for a long moment, but instead of coming to save him, he turns around and makes his way across the bridge towards the Red Line and Marie-Joie. It seems that Dragon sees this chaos as the opportunity to fulfill his own plans of taking down the Celestial Dragon. However, he will not get there so easily, because this whole time, the Gorosei have been watching the battle, ready to intervene if necessary. And now they do finally see a chance to end one of the most dangerous threats to the world government that they ever faced, and they intend to make use of it. Now again, we don't really know the full power of the Gorosei, but for this video, we're going to assume that they have some truly strong fighting capabilities. And so along with CP0, they begin their battle with the Revolutionary Army. Meanwhile, up in the air, Kizaru is finally getting the better of Momo, Yamato, and Marco.
Yeah, he's pretty damn OP.
Momo is badly burned from multiple light blasts, and Marco is really struggling to keep up with the light fruit user as well. On the ground, the Grand Fleet is start to being overwhelmed by the sheer number of Vice Admirals and Marines. And while Sanji has defeated as Flamingo with his super speed and fiery kicks, Zoro is still locked in his battle with S-Hawk. And poor Usopp, meanwhile, is just still barely staying alive, running for his life and trying to snipe at Green Bull. Luckily, the Straw Hats' most powerful allies are about to arrive. Buggy the Clown is ready to join the battle.
Would he really? I don't think Buggy would, but okay.
And while it seems like Buggy got a bit lost on the way to New Marineford, he now stands at the front of his massive ship, giving a passionate speech about how Cross Guild have come to take out some Marines of their own.
Yeah, because I don't even see Mihawk and Crocodile pushing this either, but
This really riles up his men, but while he's distracted, Kizaru sends a laser shot right towards the newly crowned Yonko. Unable to react in time, Buggy is saved by the sword of his longtime friend, Shanks.
Sick.
Welcome to the party, Red Hair Pirates. Shanks leaps onto the battlefield, followed by his crazy crew. Hancock, Rayleigh, as well as Crocodile and Mihawk, who have come together with Buggy, or the other way around, I guess. Shanks immediately heads towards the bridge where the revolutionaries are being overrun right now. Surely he is going to help Dragon against the Gorosei, right? Right? Well, at the same time, Mihawk begins to fight his clone, which frees Zoro to save Usopp from Green Bull. Likewise, Crocodile takes on S-Croc, while Rayleigh and Hancock take over fighting the Seraphim, attacking Robin and Brook. Now going back up to the fortress, Luffy is thrilled to see so many of his friends coming to help his crew, while Garp smolders watching the battlefield below. But it is at this point where the tides seem to be turning that Kong has seen enough, and he orders Luffy's immediate execution. As this announcement spreads across the battlefield, the Straw Hats become frantic. Sanji tries to come help, but Kizaru keeps him away. Frankie launches a laser beam, but it is easily blocked by S-Bear. Zoro manages to defeat Green Bull and leaps up to the first wall, but he is stopped by the Golden Buddha Sengoku. And now that Usopp is not running for his life, he climbs a rock and snipes towards Kong. However, the Commander-in-Chief easily takes Usopp's shot and doesn't even flinch. And now the Executioner's blades begin to fall, but Shanks unleashes a conqueror's hockey blast that shakes the entire islands. Weak characters from both sides just fall and collapse to the ground. And it is more than enough to knock out the two Executioners, who always seem to be these like random
just nobodies. Yeah, like, okay.
Dudes? I mean, why not? However, Kong snatches one of their blades and is about to bring it down on Luffy's neck. Only that this time, unlike at Marineford, Garp is not just going to stand by and watch. Garp crushes the blade in a hockey-covered fist, and the most epic clash of Marines ever begins.
Whoa.
And while we once again don't know how strong exactly both Kong or Garp are, we're just going to assume that he should be at least a match for Luffy's grandfather. Both of these legendary Marines start throwing island-shaking punches, crushing stone beneath their feet, but eventually Garp's intense motivation to save his last remaining grandson helps him win this brawl, and he throws Kong down to the foot of the bridge. Now, while all of this has been happening, Akainu has yet again overwhelmed Sabo and Kobe. This man is just too strong. Also, strangely, the Gorosei and wounded Kong are retreating towards the red line, leaving ZP0 to fight the revolutionaries. Now, this frees Shanks to confront Akainu, and the two begin the fight that we never got to see at Marineford. On the other side of the battlefield, Momo and Yamato have come to help fight Fujitora, but the Blight Admiral has become even more disinterested in fighting and is simply looking up into the sky instead. What could he be sensing up there? Now, with Kong defeated,
I like that he's got little bits going on that eventually like add to the... Oh, mate, this is boss. This is really good.
Luffy yells for his grandpa to finally set him free. But instead, Garp starts lecturing Luffy about his bad choice to become a pirate and how he's put all of his friends and allies at risk here. After voicing his frustration, Garp reaches down to unlock the Sea Prism Stone chains. However, as he does, blood spurts from his mouth, and a sinister laugh echoes throughout the battlefield. Luffy shouts in shock as his grandfather topples over, and suddenly 3 men become visible besides the execution platform. They are Shiryu with his invisibility powers and his blade dripping blood, Van Augur, who has the teleportation devil fruit, and of course, Blackbeard. Garp coughs blood again and tries to rise, but it's too late. Before the Vice Admiral can stand, Blackbeard takes his pistol and shoots him in the back over and over again. And this happens right
And he would do this. It is in his character.
in front of Luffy until Garp's eyes close and he lays still. Luffy's eyes waver. His hair flashes white. Conqueror's Haki shoots from him like lightning and the walls tremble. Suddenly, a golden fist descends on the 4 pirates as Sengoku roars with rage. Blackbeard blocks Sengoku's giant punch and with his other hand sends out shockwaves that make the former fleet admiral fall to the ground. Zoro also leaps up and clashes with Shiryu, but Van Augur teleports the 3 of them to the other side of the battlefield, leaving Blackbeard and Luffy alone. And then shouts rise from the battlefield as all eyes are starting to lock on the two Pirate King rivals. Blackbeard's darkness-covered fist reaches down and grabs Luffy by the neck. Luffy thrashes, trying to break free, but it is impossible due to Blackbeard's fruit and the sea stone still weakening him.
Oh, yeah?
Blackbeard
Okay, wow.
takes his pistol, points it at Luffy's head, but before he can pull the trigger, the sky suddenly darkens. Blackbeard stops and looks up, as does everyone else. Dark clouds have gathered, and above them there is some incredible mass of light. Now, with everyone distracted, God Usopp takes advantage of this moment. You see, the Waxman Mr. 3 has also arrived together with the Cross Guild. And just like at Marineford, he makes a key to unlock the Sea Prison Stone handcuffs as well. Usopp snipes the key all the way across the battlefield, perfectly into the slot on Luffy's handcuffs as he's held up by Blackbeard. And Luffy is free.
Wow, as if they used that.
Just in time for beams of light to rain down from the sky. You see, this was part of the plan all along. In a situation like this, it would be the perfect moment for the Gorosei or Imo to use their superpower weapon capable of destroying whole islands.
Yeah.
And the reason that they wanted this execution
And they escaped. Oh, so they brought everyone in one location.
out in the open, just like at Marineford, was to gather all the strongest pirates of the world and wipe all of them out with one fell swoop, even if they killed many of the Marines in the process. They now effectively started the Great Cleansing that they mentioned all the way back in chapter 908.
Right.
And at this point, there are many ways such an event could possibly go. The lasers could certainly be strong enough to kill everyone gathered at New Marineford. But for this video, we're going to assume that there is a way to survive. Enter our enraged sun gods, Luffy.
Right,
Now
yeah.
fully in his awakened form, Luffy grabs part of the fortress walls and stretches it out across the sky above the island, just as the lasers come raining down. The wall gets obliterated, but it just manages to stop the lasers. Rubble starts falling everywhere, destroying the island and many of the pirate ship waiting in the ocean. Even the massive arches of the new Marineford building begin to crash to the ground. It is pure chaos until suddenly the stones start freezing in the air. You see, Fujitora has now fully abandoned the fight and is using his full gravity powers to try and stop the falling stones. And at this point, survival is everything that's on everyone's minds. Can you imagine seeing such destructive powers nearly wiping everyone out? I mean, who wouldn't want to run from this? Members of the Grand Fleet return to the ships that are still intact as fast as they can. The revolutionaries do the same. Even the Red Hair pirates are rallying around Shanks near the shoreline. Everyone just wants to escape with their lives here as this terrifying power lights up the sky a second time. Well, everyone except Luffy. Laughing uncontrollably and with tears in his eyes, he protects Garp's body from the falling stones and lashes out at Blackbeard. His incredibly powerful punch sends Blackbeard flying, but the Yonko is caught by Van Augur and brought safely to the ground once again. Luffy starts chasing down Blackbeard, and this brings him close to where Shanks and Akainu have paused their fight. Here, Luffy and Blackbeard clash once again, shaking the island with their titanic powers. Nearby, Shanks yells at Luffy to stop fighting, and even Akainu is looking up to the sky as he moves toward the bridge and the safety of the Red Line with the rest of the Marines. But Luffy continues to pummel Blackbeard until he is once again teleported by Van Augur out to their ship waiting offshore. Luffy roars in frustration and starts looking around for someone else to fight and punch. He starts moving towards Akainu, seeking revenge for Ace, just as the beam of light falls once again. But he's halted as a scream cuts across the battlefield. All the way back at shore near the Thousand Sunny, a laser blast has fallen near the gathered Straw Hats. Smoke fills the air, and Luffy can see Sanji holding an unconscious Nami, dodging between the strikes of light as the Straw Hat crew tries to retreat to the Thousand Sunny. And seeing Nami almost die, suddenly Luffy snaps out of his battle rage. Usopp shouts at Luffy to come back, and Zoro leaps down from the fortress carrying Garp's body. Luffy takes one last look towards the Red Line and once again declares war on the world government, and this time he means it. He then shares a really meaningful look with Shanks and then departs, picking up Usopp as they return to the Thousand Sunny and they manage to escape. However, this is far from the end of the final battle. Now that Luffy has even more motivation to come after the world government, he and Akainu are basically guaranteed to clash one final time, which might well be the hardest battle for Luffy in the entire story. That's because, as we just saw in this battle, the Fleet Admiral has one of the most overpowered Devil Fruits in One Piece. In fact, all of the admirals have ridiculously strong devil fruits, which actually leaves us with another super interesting question. What do you think would have happened if instead of his own devil fruit, Luffy had eaten one of the admiral's fruits? And you can watch that video right here. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching.
Interesting, because the video was called "What would happen if Luffy got executed by the Marines?" Not "What would happen if Luffy was sentenced to be executed by the Marines." Like, that wasn't a Luffy got executed scenario. That was a, he was, you know, but still a very cool, very interesting story. Just a bit, very misleading title there. But it did have me very interested. I was very intrigued. I was very on board for the whole thing the whole time. I really enjoyed that. That was a really cool what if. But yeah, thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video I upload, link is in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is all I ask for. That's greatly appreciated. Thank you guys very much for that. And thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe. I'm going to leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. I'll see you guys all, you guys. Next time.